Chapter 2331. Daisy glanced at Knowles in the mirror. Why should I ask you about that? Knowles raised his eyebrows. Do you trust me to this extent? She snorted softly. Do you have the guts to betray me? The corners of Knowles' lips curled upward. I already have a little devil at home. How would I still have the energy to do something out there that betrays my baby's trust? On the other side of the city, in a private club, Tiffany stood outside the private room, applying lip balm to the mirror. The private room was filled with the investors and the director of a variety show. Mr. Gosling has presented me with so many opportunities to participate in variety shows, and he wants me to seize them by myself. As for whether I'll be able to regain popularity or not, that will depend on me. The background and identity of the investors are very prominent in the local entertainment industry, so I must seize the opportunity. As long as I can entertain them and form a close relationship with all of them tonight, I won't have to be afraid that I'll lose all support in the future. I must fight my way up the ladder and build my own strong foothold in the entertainment industry as soon as possible. This is the only way for me to make myself worthy of Mr. Gosling. She pushed open the private room's door, walked toward the investors with a grin, and sat down, but realized that she could not even find a gap to introduce herself. The investors were chit-chatting about something and did not even notice that Tiffany had sat down beside them. It was obvious that Tiffany was not famous enough to them, and her appearance was not enough to distract them from the topic. Mr. Hannigan, it's good to know that you've recently started investing in the entertainment industry. We recently started a project known as 24 Hours in an Inn, where we allow celebrities to experience life. Are you interested in taking a look at the proposal? Tanner clinked his wine glass with the man beside him. This sounds interesting. Oh yes, this is one of the guests of the variety show, Tiffany Cullen. Only then did the director remember to introduce Tiffany. Tiffany smiled and raised her wine glass, wanting to clink it against Tanner's. Mr. Hannigan, please do give me more advice. Tanner turned to look at the director. Is she one of the S-tier celebrities? Tiffany, who got ignored, raised her glass in midair in embarrassment, and her expression stiffened slightly. The director explained with a smile, she's not one of the S-tier, but she's very famous recently. Isn't the guest's popularity one of the more important factors that will affect the audience rating of variety shows? What happened to Tiffany recently was indeed a trending topic. Tanner said, in terms of fame, she's not as famous as James Tell. I wish to see Daisy Goldman and James Tell participate in this show. The director felt helpless. I thought about inviting James and Daisy too, but their schedule seems to clash with ours. Then just wait until both our schedules match. Tiffany's hand clenched the glass's foot tightly. What the fuck? What's wrong with this Mr. Hannigan? Does he think that I'm not as good as the two of them only because Daisy is one of the S-tier celebrities that's very popular and James is the famous king of variety shows? Something came to Tiffany's mind suddenly, and she asked, wouldn't it be bad for a variety show to invite Daisy and James onto its show? Tanner's expression dimmed slightly. The expressions of the director and the other investors changed too. Does this actress know what she's saying? Tiffany sensed that the atmosphere in the room had gone wrong and quickly explained herself, what I'm trying to say is that Daisy has already gotten married. If she and James were to attend variety shows together, scandals might arise very easily between them. After all, Daisy and James have already been interacting very closely while they're acting in the crew. If you were to ask me for my opinion about their relationship, I don't think it's very appropriate for them to interact so closely. Daisy is already married, but she still doesn't know how to avoid suspicion. Rumor has it that they're very flirtatious when they're talking to each other. They have even been caught on camera. The director was shocked. You shouldn't be badmouthing another person without any concrete evidence. Daisy is the daughter of the Goldmans of Bassburg. Even all the capitalists in the entertainment industry have to show her some respect. Since her debut, her career has been smooth sailing. In addition to having a strong background, her hard work is also one of the main reasons for her success. Chapter 2332. Moreover, Mr. Tanner Hannigan, who's present, has business connections with Mr. Nolan Goldman. Does she plan to offend the Goldmans by saying this? Seeing that they did not believe in her, Tiffany took out her phone and found the photos in her phone's photo album. This was taken by one of the members of our crew. You can take a look at them. In the photos, James' actions toward Daisy looked a little intimate. It was difficult for someone who did not know the context not to misunderstand them. Is Daisy having an affair with James? However, I heard that James and Daisy are rather close. This seems to make sense now. Tanner did not say anything from the beginning to the end since everyone saw the photos. After some time, he placed his wine glass down, patted the director on his shoulder, and got up. I'll go back first. I'll update you about my decision. The director sent them away with a grin. Okay, thank you for coming. Tiffany felt smug deep down. If Daisy and James have the balls to attend this variety show, the only thing awaiting them in the near future will be a scandal. It'd be best if the fans of both parties were to start a Twitter war. The more intense the fight, the better. That would be a perfect incident to suppress the public's opinion about me. So why not? The next day, the crew behind the variety show 24 Hours in tweeted a post. Hashtag new guest Amy Holt to replace Tiffany Cullen as a permanent guest on the show. Hashtag. After the tweet was posted, all netizens were shocked. Tiffany had been replaced after only one appearance in the variety show 24 Hours in. Many netizens speculated that Tiffany had been affected by public opinion from the previous incident. After seeing the news, Tiffany called the director immediately. Sir, didn't you agree to let me onto the show as a resident guest? Why? I only invited you to our show because of Mr. Gosling. And the first thing you do after appearing on one episode is blabbering nonsense last night in front of all our investors? You're the one who's offended others. What do you expect me to do to save you? The director of the show hung up the phone. Tiffany froze in place. Did I just get replaced because I claimed that Daisy has an intimate relationship with James? She was so exasperated that she flung her phone on the ground and smashed it. Fuck. Why? Is it because Daisy has a strong background and a backer? She walked to the couch, sat down, picked up her laptop, logged into her Twitter account, and posted a tweet. Hashtag what can I do in front of a capitalist? I admit defeat. Hashtag. Her fans then started to send her consolation messages and retweeted her tweet. Everyone also managed to guess who the capitalist she mentioned was. Tiffany's fans were furious, and they started tagging the official Twitter account of 24 Hours in and reprimanded the crew, while some of them connoted Daisy in their tweets. Even the official Twitter account of Tenet Media was not spared from the war. Hashtag, can someone bully others just because you have the money? Tiffany knelt before the public and apologized, so how can somebody get back at her after all that she's done? Hashtag. Hashtag, someone even told the public that she didn't rely on her family to make her debut in showbiz. Isn't this a smack in her own face? Isn't she relying on her family now? Hashtag. Hashtag, hee hee, she is a little princess in the circle, so what are we ordinary people to her? Be careful, or else we'll all be blocked by the capitalist behind her. Hashtag. At that moment, at the studio in Karelia, Tiffany's fans gathered outside the studio, demanding justice for Tiffany. Daisy's posters were painted with red crosses and trampled by them. The group of fans was so aggressive that the security at the scene could not stop them. James and Daisy passed by, and James clicked his tongue when he saw the commotion outside the studio. Have Tiffany's fans lost their minds? Daisy had seen such scenes so many times before this that she was not taken aback by the protest. It's okay. I've already gotten used to it. Let's go. She was about to leave when a shriek came from behind. Daisy Goldman. An emotional fan snuck in through the blockade, went straight to her, and splashed an unknown liquid in a glass bottle at Daisy. James quickly stretched his arm out to block the liquid. Hey! Look out! James's arm managed to block the liquid, and a strong burning sensation distorted his expression. Daisy realized something, grabbed him, and supported him. It's sulfuric acid. Chapter 2333. The female fan who splashed sulfuric acid was subdued to the ground by one of the security guards, but she would not admit her mistake. Daisy Goldman, you deserve this. Why aren't you the one who got splashed? The crew found out about the situation and rushed over. Daisy turned around and shouted, "Bring me a bottle of water now. Hurry up." One of the crew members brought Daisy a water bottle. She immediately grabbed it from the employee and cleaned James's arm with it. Meanwhile, the staff beside them called the police and an ambulance. Daisy looked at James and yelled with bloodshot eyes, "What do you think you're doing? Are you stupid?" James inhaled sharply, gnashed his teeth, and forced a smile. "If I didn't block the acid for you, you would have been disfigured. I was only looking after you on your husband's behalf." Daisy pushed the person next to her away, walked toward the female fan, subdued by security, and slapped her in front of everyone. One of the crew members pulled Daisy immediately. "Miss Vanderbilt, there are people watching." "So what?" Daisy's eyes were bloodshot with anger, and she pointed at the group of fans. "Are you here to demand justice for Tiffany? Okay, then I'll tell you right here and right now that even if Tiffany kneels in front of me and apologizes to me now, I won't accept it. As for why I won't accept it and what she's done before this, I believe you'll find out all the ins and outs of the incident soon. Apart from that, what makes you people think that I'll need my family's connections to deal with Tiffany? She's not worthy of that level of effort." Daisy grabbed the collar of the female fan. Splashing someone with sulfuric acid is a crime of violence and intentional injury, so slapping you is considered a light punishment in my book. If anything happens to James. She then sneered and approached the female fan. "Criminal detention is definitely inevitable, and you'll surely be held accountable for the compensation for damages. Even that idol of yours will have to bear some of the consequences of your actions today." The news about Tiffany's fan's detainment and James protecting Daisy from acid made it onto the trending list. At the same time, Daisy slapping Tiffany's fan because of James and threatening that she would not forgive Tiffany even if she were to kneel and apologize to her also made it onto the list. After the series of incidents made it onto the papers and other online media, many netizens supported Daisy. James and Daisy's fans teamed up to reprimand Tiffany so ferociously that even Tiffany's agency dared not speak up for her again. Netizens ridiculed Tiffany for thinking too highly of herself, and many haters dug into Tiffany's inappropriate tweets, those that she posted before she made her debut. Tiffany disliked celebrities who had a strong background in the entertainment industry and thought that their actions were equivalent to playing dirty and cheating in the industry. However, she quickly apologized after being smacked in the face by other netizens. She also liked and retweeted posts with the connotation, "Princesses can always live the life that they want without having to work hard." She also commented with another private account. Hashtag "The only thing they're being blessed with is luck when they are reincarnated, making them think they deserve everything. I really despise such an attitude." Some netizens even found Tiffany's past medical history and found out that she had undergone plastic surgery. They did not only discover Tiffany's tweets that promoted hostility toward the rich, but also tweets in which she voiced out her disdain toward the poor. Some even found links and articles that had published videos showing Tiffany happily taking photos with indigenous children during a public welfare undertaking, but complaining to the staff behind their backs, saying they were dirty. Tiffany was quickly labeled as a hypocrite and a two-faced woman by netizens. On the other side, in the hospital, James was leaning on the hospital bed, and his assistant and some crew members were at his service, bringing him water, food, and fruits. "I suddenly feel that being hospitalized isn't such a bad thing." Daisy, who was peeling an apple, glared at him. "How can you still joke around? The area on his arm that got corroded and burnt was not too small, and it would surely leave a scar after this." And now that the leading actor had been hospitalized, it was estimated that he would not be able to film his part for a while. The project could be said to have run into many obstacles along the way. Chapter 2334. Pfft, it only hurt my arm. Besides, what kind of man will I be if I don't have a scar or two on my body? James's assistant shook his head. "If your face got hurt, you'd be weeping now." Daisy pursed her lips tightly and lowered her gaze. I'm the one who got you into this mess. James leaned on the pillow. We're brothers, so there's no need for us to get all entangled in this topic of who got who into trouble. Besides, I'm a man. Shouldn't I be the one who stands up whenever such things happen? Shannon and Knowles appeared outside the ward at this moment, and Daisy got up from her chair. Shannon came over and stared at James. How's the injury? James grinned. It's okay, don't worry, I can still move my hand, so it won't affect the shooting much. Shannon sighed and said earnestly, I really didn't expect so many things to happen throughout the filming. We first encountered a huge blizzard, then Daisy fell sick and almost got drowned, and now James has been hospitalized due to a sulfuric acid assault. Did we start the shooting of this drama at an unlucky time? It was hard for him not to have such thoughts. James said, that means that the drama will be very popular. We're still persevering after running into so many obstacles. This will definitely be a great hit, don't you think? He amused everyone in the ward. Okay, don't talk too much, and get some rest already. You should take good care of your injuries first. I'll provide you with the result of our investigation soon. Shannon left the ward with James' assistant and some other members of the crew after saying that. Only Daisy, Knowles, and James were left in the ward. Knowles walked to the bed and patted him on the shoulder. I owe you one. He had asked James to take care of Daisy for him when they were the crew because he trusted James' character, but he did not expect that he would block an acid attack for Daisy. James still looked as if it was not a big deal. All right then. If I run into any kind of trouble in the future, I'll come to you. Will that be fine? Knowles nodded. Of course. He gave Knowles a thumbs up. Cool. I just love to deal with people who are as bold and forthright as you. Daisy followed Knowles out of the ward, but she stopped halfway. Knowles, I don't want to let Tiffany off so easily. It's obvious how Tiffany's fans got to know where the studio is. And the fact they had the courage to create a stir at the shooting site must have something to do with Tiffany's instigation. Knowles turned to look at her and then stretched out his hand to take her into his arms. Don't worry. Today will be the last day she gets to enjoy peace. Tiffany got scolded so much that she had to deactivate her Twitter account temporarily. At present, she could only hide in her residence, hide behind the curtain, and look downstairs. By doing so, she saw many agitated fans of James gathering downstairs and reporters, hoping to get some photos of her. She was biting her nails. I only wanted to make Daisy suffer a little, but who knew that James would block the acid for her? Who will believe it when the two of them say they're not in that kind of relationship? She picked up her cell phone and used another account she had created to post a photo on Twitter, hoping to divert some of the netizens' attention away from her. And the photo was titled James Tell has an intimate relationship with Daisy Goldman. However, not long after the photo was released, she was thoroughly smacked in the face. Hashtag are you dumb? Daisy and James are close friends, okay, hashtag. Hashtag you're one of Tiffany's fans, aren't you, hashtag. Hashtag what kind of piece of trash would spread rumors about the DJ Brotherhood? Does your household even have an internet connection, hashtag. Hashtag everybody knows that James and Daisy are best friends and partners. James previously claimed on a few variety shows that he likes cooler women older than him, while Daisy looks like an innocent and beautiful princess, which is obviously not his cup of tea. He treats Daisy like a brother and a buddy hashtag. Hashtag everybody also knows that Daisy has a husband, okay? This photo of yours only seems weird because of its shooting angle, and while you're photoshopping a picture, you've forgotten to remove the people in the reflection of the elevator, which shows that the two of them weren't the only ones in the elevator. Also, judging from the picture, James didn't act excessively. I'm reporting this photo at this very moment hashtag, chapter 2335. Tiffany was utterly dumbfounded, and her hand that was holding the phone was trembling. How did things develop to where they are now? Is this it for me? Am I done already? She suddenly remembered someone and immediately found a number on her phone and dialed it. After a long time, the call went through. Zep. Mr. Gosling, I'm in some trouble, and you're the only person who can help me now. Can you? Zafir asked indifferently, who told you to attack Daisy? She was stunned for a split second. Tiffany, I've helped you once and presented you with loads of opportunities. So ask yourself, what have you done? It sounded like he was questioning her. Tiffany bit her lip. I didn't do it on purpose. It's just that I've run out of ideas. The 24 hours in an variety shows team replaced me without even providing me with an explanation. That's why He interrupted her and asked, don't you know the relationship between Mr. Tanner Hannigan and the legendary Mr. Nolan Goldman? Tiffany's face turned as pale as death. Could it be that Mr. Hannigan knows the Goldmans? That's why the show replaced me after what I said the other night. Mr. Gosling, please help me out. Didn't you say that you would help me? I really know what I've done wrong now. You want me to help you? Zafir gave off an indifferent smirk. Why should I help you? Tiffany froze instantly, and all the blood drained from her face. But didn't you promise that if I admitted what I did and quit the crew, you'd certainly help me? But I didn't expect you to be such an idiot. Zafir stood in front of the window with a gloomy gaze. I didn't give you all these chances, just to give you the courage and turn you into someone stupid enough to go against Daisy. Who do you think you are? You're such a bumptious, presumptuous woman. I really thought too highly of you. You're not worth my time and effort at all. Mr. Gosling. But you're the one who asked me to do that thing. Are you not afraid I'll expose you if you don't help me? The only thing that she could do at this moment was to throw the handle after the blade. The other party was silent for a moment and then scoffed. Do you think you can threaten me? Tiffany seemed to have been strangled by the neck and was unable to speak. I asked you to frame Knowles in order to dissolve his marriage with Daisy, but did I ask you to do so through a female influencer? Since you're the one who hired her, does she have anything to do with me? His unconcerned tone caused Tiffany to slump on the ground. Why? Why would you do this to me? As soon as you hired that influencer to plot against Daisy, you should have thought about why I would do this to you. You're by yourself from now onward. Zafir hung up the call and immediately blocked her number. Tiffany covered her face and went into a mental breakdown. The next day, a clarification from Sophie was published in the newspaper, alongside a threatening message that Tiffany had sent her, as well as a recording of the call between her and Tiffany, all of which pointed out that Tiffany was the mastermind behind the extramarital setup that Knowles got himself into. This piece of news shocked the entire internet. Together with Daisy's tweet that condemned Tiffany for her actions, the crew members also announced that it was Tiffany who instigated the young actor into not cooperating with the shooting, causing Daisy to fall sick, faint, and almost drown. The criticism against Tiffany on the internet grew, almost forcing her into committing suicide. All the official accounts created by Tiffany's fans were banned, and the companies that had worked with Tiffany ended all her endorsements and cut ties with her within a very short period. Even in the dramas Tiffany had starred in before, she had been removed from all the cast lists. It could be said that she had been blocked and banned from all sides of the industry. Half a month later, Tiffany seemed to have disappeared from the entertainment industry, and no one cared about it. James had gotten discharged from the hospital, and the crew also arrived at the end of the shooting of all of Daisy's scenes. The crew members were reluctant to see Daisy leave them. Daisy carried the bouquet in her hand and bid the crew goodbye with a grin. Thank you for taking care of me during all this time. If another chance were to present itself to me in the future, I'd hope to work with you again. Chapter 2336. Don't worry. More opportunities will definitely present themselves in the future. Daisy turned to look at Shannon. Then please watch over James more for me. James clicked his tongue. What do you mean by that? I'm number 3-year-old kid. Do I look like someone who can't take care of myself? Shannon laughed. Okay, I'll take good care of this brat and save Charlie from loads of worrying news. Daisy and Knowles got in the car and left the crew. On the way, Daisy leaned on the back of the seat. I thought Tiffany would expose Zafir in order to protect herself, but I didn't expect. Not only did Tiffany disappear from the internet, but she also chose to remain silent. No-Lace massaged her shoulders for her. Perhaps she chose to be silent because she knows that even though she wants to expose Zafir, she has nothing on him. Daisy was astonished for a moment. If everything that she told the female influencer to do to you was under his orders, wouldn't that be something that she can hold on to? No-Lace glanced at her. Do you know who was the person who got Lisa expelled from school and banned from any other school in Basburg back then? She was startled. I only know it's not Colton's doing. It's Zafir Gosling. Daisy froze for a bit. What? Zafir did a lot of things behind you and Colton's back that led to Lisa being expelled from your school and not being taken in again by any school. It might look like he did it for you on the surface, but what he did indirectly made Lisa think that you and Colton were the ones who did it to her. No-Lace tucked a lock of her hair behind her ear. Sometimes, it only takes a tiny push to alter the trail and result in a lot of things in the world. If Zafir didn't cause Lisa to be dropped out of school or even get other schools not to accept her again, but let her continue to go to any school after that incident, even if you and she could no longer be friends, at least she wouldn't have held a grudge against you. Lisa had parted ways with Daisy because of her vanity. If she had not been forced into dropping out of school, she would at most not have been able to cross paths with Daisy ever again since then, and they would have only gone from being best friends to being strangers. But at least she would not have held grudges against Daisy. However, the incident of being expelled from school and banned from all schools in Basburg had burrowed a seed of hatred deep down at the bottom of Lisa's heart, and it was the trigger that led to the series of actions that came from Lisa later on. Daisy lowered her gaze. No-Lace stroked her hair. Of course, I can't blame Zafir for making such a decision without your permission, but all his approaches seem very extreme. Take Tiffany as an example. His original intention wasn't against you, but against me. He planned everything while staying hidden behind her back, which was equivalent to using Tiffany to make a tiny push. However, he never planned to save Tiffany from any of the aftermaths. All he did was offer Tiffany an olive branch that made Tiffany think that sticking with him was a way out, so he could turn her into his scapegoat and retreat from all this mess unscathed. Even if Zafir was the one who asked Tiffany to plan a plot against me, Tiffany was the one who approached the female influencer, while he was only the person who came up with the scheme. Tiffany has always been the person who's done the rest of the work. Tiffany was like a pawn to him. If Tiffany were to succeed, it'd be beneficial for him. But if Tiffany were to fail, it wouldn't be beneficial, yet it'd also be harmless to him. He didn't commit any fatal mistake or leave any evidence to Tiffany, so there's no chance for her to threaten him. On the contrary, even if Tiffany wanted to push the blame on him, based on Tiffany's latest actions and the public's opinion about her, would the netizens still believe in what Tiffany said? Daisy remained silent for a long time. He used Tiffany because he already knew she was targeting me. Just like what he did to Lisa, are you saying he doesn't care about what would happen to Tiffany at all? Otherwise, why would he only use Tiffany when there were so many people in the crew? Chapter 2337. I've always thought that Zafir was a gentle and kind big brother who's considerate and would put others in front of himself. But after learning of these events, I only realized just how terrifyingly paranoid and selfish he is. As for Lisa's incident, he did do everything for me, but he never told me anything about it. Even if I wanted to stop being friends with Lisa, I had never considered forcing Lisa to drop out of school. This time around, he wanted to use Tiffany because she was turning me into a target. Although his original intention was not to hurt me but to target No-Lace, his selfish behavior still hurt me indirectly, didn't it? No-Lace took her into his arms and rested his chin on the top of her head. The reason I didn't go after him is that he didn't really hurt you. That's why I'm letting him go this time around. But if something similar happens again, I'll surely settle the new and old scores once and for all with him. Daisy was startled and pursed her lips. Are you doing so because of me? Zafir was a friend who had known Daisy and her brothers since childhood. After learning that Zafir was the person instigating Tiffany behind all that had happened, she really did not know how to deal with it. I've never thought of turning Zafir into an enemy even if I can no longer be friends with him. But Nolace actually ignored the fact that he had been framed and chose to let him go. She clenched her hand tightly. Nolace noticed something and kissed her forehead affectionately. Don't feel guilty. This is my choice. Besides, his plan was so bad that it was almost worthless. He wanted to take advantage of the weakness in our relationship to snatch you from me. He's still too young and naive. Daisy sniffed to relieve the discomfort in her nasal cavity when her cell phone rang. She took it out and saw that it was a call from Maisie. She picked it up and answered, "Mom?" Maisie asked, "Have you finished filming?" She leaned against Nolace's shoulder. "I just finished all my shooting scenes today." "What's wrong? If it's done, take Nolly back to the Goldman mansion. Your great-grandfather has come back to Zlokova." Daisy sat up instantly. "What, great-grandpa has returned to Zlokova?" Back in Bassburg, in the Goldman mansion's living room. Nicholas and Nolan were sitting on the couch while a white-haired old man sat across from them, drinking leisurely tea as he glanced at the two men. "Nick, why have you grown so old?" Nicholas was rendered speechless. "Father, I'm growing old too, as the days go by." "It's not rocket science, is it?" Titus flicked the lid of his teacup and said, "You're not physically fit enough. As you get older, you need to exercise more. Just take a look at me. My legs and feet are still as flexible and nimble as they were decades ago. Don't you dare step into a coffin before I do, and don't say that I've never warned you before that I'm aiming to reach 3 digits in age. Please rest assured. When you're 6 feet under, I might not even have gotten one of my legs into my grave." Seeing the two old men arguing with each other, Nolan rubbed his temples. "Grandfather, why didn't you inform me in advance that you planned to return to Zlokova? Why should I inform you about my return? So that you could come and pick me up from the airport?" Titus took a sip of tea. "The reason I've come back this time around is to see the 3 little rugrats, not the 2 of you." Colton carried his daughter and led Freya into the living room. "Great-grandpa." Titus turned his head, put down the teacup immediately, and stood up in surprise. "Oh, Cole, you even have a child already?" Maisie put the fruit platter on the table and smiled. "Yes, Cole is the first among the 3 children to have a child. Although Daisy was the first to get married, he's much faster than her." Freya nodded politely. "Nice to meet you, great-grandpa." "Nice to meet you too." "You must be my second great-granddaughter-in-law, right?" asked Titus. Colton nodded. "Her name is Freya Pruitt." Titus's gaze landed on the baby in his arms. "Then, is this your son or your daughter?" Chapter 2338. Colton looked down at the baby in his arms. "She's my daughter, Charm, short for Charmaine." Titus stretched his neck forward and stretched out his hand eagerly. "Show me my great-great-granddaughter." Titus held Charm in his arms. Charm was not asleep and was sucking on her thumb while staring at Titus with her big round eyes, not even making a single noise. "Oh my, why is this little girl still sucking on her fingers? That's very dirty. Take it out." Titus took Charmaine's teeny thumb out of her mouth. She pouted for a split second before immediately bursting out crying. Titus was caught off guard and bewildered. Freya put the spare pacifier into Charm's mouth, and the little baby stopped crying instantly and started sucking on the pacifier. Titus looked at the brilliant eyes of the little girl, and his stone-cold heart could not help but melt. Colton walked to the couch and sat down. "Dad, Grandpa, hasn't Waylon arrived yet?" Titus handed the child to Freya and turned around. "Yes, Wayne. That brat secretly found himself a wife after returning to Zlokova and didn't even tell me about her. I also want to see just what kind of woman he's found for himself." Nicholas smiled. "The woman that he's found resembles you when you were at your peak back then." Titus frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Nicholas laughed loudly. "She's the daughter of the infamous Sunny Southern of the East Islands. How can she be any inferior when compared side by side to Wayne?" Among the 3 rugrats, Titus had always thought the most highly about Waylon, and he had appointed him as his successor, so it was only natural for the woman that would be staying by his side to have to pass Titus' tests. After all, Titus might not be satisfied with just an ordinary young lady from another aristocratic family. Titus was infuriated. Do you think that I've never been to Southeast Eurasia? Sunny Southern only has a son. Since when did he give birth to a daughter? Nicholas cleared his throat and motioned him to turn around. Everyone turned around as Waylon slowly strode into the living room with Cameron. It seemed that Cameron had been dragged into the mansion. Seeing the grand scene in front of her really scared her. Waylon chuckled. Great-grandpa. Titus glared at him for a split second, and his gaze instantly shifted onto the woman standing beside him before he squinted. This young lady, are you telling me that she's the daughter of Sunny Southern? Cameron was slightly confused. What's wrong with that? Titus clicked his tongue and shook his head. Look at your slender arms and legs. You look so weak. How can you support the Goldmans as the matriarch? As soon as these words came out of his mouth, the living room's atmosphere changed instantly. Everyone present was aware of Titus' personality. Titus had always been picky when it came to the candidates that were about to marry one of the Goldmans. When Nolan and Maisie had gotten together, Titus had not thought highly of Maisie either. Because Nolan was the only heir of the Goldmans at the time, he was worried that Maisie would not be able to take on the family's heavy responsibility of being the matriarch. But the Goldmans had 3 children now. Waylon was the eldest, while Colton was the second child. When it came to Colton, Nolan's second son, Titus had never been strict with his choice of women. But as the eldest son, Titus' expectations for Waylon were different. He would one day become the leader of the night banquet, the successor who would take over his position in the future. He did not hope that the woman that Waylon had found was one of those aristocratic ladies who were ignorant of the world around them. After all, a flower that grew up in a greenhouse would only cry when she got hurt, and if something terrible were to happen, whether she could protect herself would also become a major issue. Not to mention if she were to drag someone down with her, that would be even worse. Cameron looked down at her own body. What's wrong with my slender arms and legs? Besides, who told you that I've decided to marry into the Goldmans? Titus was startled. What did you say? Nicholas got up and tried to appease Titus harmoniously. Father, this is Cam, and that's indeed who she is, so don't get too worked up with a young girl on such an occasion. Chapter 2339. Why can't I get worked up, because of her? Titus looked dissatisfied. Did you hear what she just said? She doesn't want to marry into the Goldmans. Does she even know what she's talking about? Wayne is an excellent man. Other women can't even dream about laying their hands on him, and this girl is disgusted when she's been blessed with an opportunity that other girls would fight each other to the death for? This old man is just nitpicking now. Cameron crossed her arms. Since when did I say I'm disgusted by him? Didn't you think that I'm too weak to support the Goldmans as its future matriarch? Then I'll just prove to you that you're right. You. What about me? I've never been humiliated to this extent ever since I was born. You make it sound like I'm trying to curry favor with the Goldmans. If I were to know that I'd run into you here, I wouldn't have come. After saying that, she turned her face away and snorted. No matter what, I'm the one who's being wronged here, and I don't plan to act like nothing's happened. Titus took a deep breath and looked back at Waylon. This is the woman that you found? Seeing that Cameron had gotten a little emotional, Waylon could not help but laugh. Great-grandpa, you're the one who wanted to meet her, so why must you scare her? I scared her? Titus gnashed his teeth. I only wanted to find out just how capable she is, but I didn't expect her to be this arrogant. This woman. Come to think of it, she does resemble me a little when I was still a young lad back then. Waylon smiled. How should I put this? Cameron is regarded as the overlord of the East Islands, so being a little arrogant is nothing. Cameron elbowed Waylon and glared at him. What do you mean by the overlord of the East Islands? Are you mocking me? Waylon approached her. Don't you look like one now? Even Dad and I don't dare to act so arrogantly when we're in front of great-grandpa. She's definitely the first in the family. Get out of my way. All right. Waylon stood aside obediently. Titus was stunned. What did I just see? This girl actually has the guts to boss Wayne around? Titus cleared his throat. I thought you weren't the same as your father, but you're as useless as your father when your wife is around. Waylon said with a smile, I learned from you, didn't I? Titus was at a loss for words. Nicholas shook his head and said helplessly, Father, you don't come back that often, so don't make such a huge fuss about things already. The children are all here. Titus snorted softly, walked to the couch with his hands behind his back, and sat down. Those young ones, all of them, are getting more and more out of control as the days go by. Just look at the spoiled brats that you people have raised. Nicholas and the others had gotten used to Titus' nitpickiness, so they would, at most, think that he was being stubborn and quarrelsome. Cameron stepped back and moved to Waylon's side. What does this old man want from me? The first thing that he gives me as soon as I arrive here is such crap. Waylon turned his head to look at her and could not help but chuckle. You'll get used to it soon. She lowered her voice. Why must I get used to that? I'll make it clear to you now, you're the one who insisted on dragging me here, so I won't show him any respect if that's how he treats other people. If he dares to step on me again, you'd better be there to voice out for me. Waylon hooked her finger with his fingertips and got even closer to her. I'm also afraid. Shouldn't you be the one who covers me? Cameron looked at him in surprise. Me? You want me to cover you? Is he actually afraid of that old man? Waylon squinted and smiled. When I'm being scolded, you must protect me, all right? Cameron took a deep breath. I've already offended the old man. What makes him think that I'll be able to protect him? What are the two of you whispering back there? Titus' hand that was lifting his teacup stopped mid-air while he glared sharply at them. Waylon smiled and did not utter a single word. Cameron bit the bullet and replied bravely, we are not saying anything. Titus took a sip of tea, put down the teacup, and looked solemn. I've lived for decades, and I've never been treated like this, by any youngster. They say you're Sunny Southern's daughter. What's your father's phone number? Cameron choked on her own words. Are you telling me that you're going to bring my parents into this? Titus snorted. Why can't I call your father? Chapter 2340. No, this is between us, so you better not get my father involved. He wants to complain about me to Dad? Over my dead body. Nicholas smiled. Father, why are you making things difficult for the young lady? I'm making things hard for her? She's the one who's making things hard for me. She's been embarrassing me like I'm nothing. Does my reputation in the family look like something that can be trampled on? Titus looked upset. Cameron muttered, my reputation is worth something too. Titus was shocked when he heard her refute. Look, she's talking back at me again. What a presumptuous woman. I must talk to her father about her attitude. Cameron's eyes widened, you're quite an unreasonable geezer. Titus nodded. Yes, I've always been, and I'll always be unreasonable. What do you plan to do about that? Cameron took a deep breath and forced a smile. A truly great person knows when to yield. I'll apologize for what I've done, I'm sorry. Titus turned his face away arrogantly. It's too late for you to apologize now. Cameron was about to say something when Charm, who was lying in Freya's arms, suddenly burst into tears, interrupting the freezing atmosphere. Colton got up and walked over. Charm, what's wrong? Freya looked anxious and helpless. I don't know either. Maisie asked with a smile, could she be hungry? Freya replied, I fed her before we departed here. Maisie stretched out her hands and carried Charm in her arms. Her diaper isn't wet, nor is she hungry. It's probably the noise that we're making. We're disturbing her sleep. Titus uttered it this time, bring that little girl here. Why is she crying like this? Maisie brought Charm to Titus. Titus held Charm in his arms, and something amazing happened as Charm, who was crying at the top of her lungs, became quiet instantly. Nicholas also came over to tease her. Charm. This girl seems to like you, father. The old man smirked and claimed ostentatiously, this girl has taste. Daisy and Knowles arrived in a hurry at this time, and she entered the door with a box of gifts. Great-grandpa. Titus raised his head. Yo, it's Daisy. And you even brought me a gift? Of course, Knowles and I bought this for you, hope you'll like it. Titus opened the box, took a glance into it, and saw that it was a ceramic tea set. It looked simple but elegant, and it brought a wide grin onto Titus' face. Yes, I like it. Thank you. Daisy breathed a sigh of relief and stared at Knowles. Knowles chose this tea set. Thank God that great-grandpa likes it. Soon, it was time for dinner. It was rare for the family to get together for a meal, so Titus was so happy that he naturally forgot about his argument with Cameron. Titus poured himself a glass of wine. In a blink of an eye, all three of my great-grandchildren have all grown up, so when will we be having the wedding banquets? Daisy and Knowles looked at each other, and she replied with a smile, any time will do for Knowles and me. Knowles fetched her some vegetables and other dishes and added with a smile, I plan to have one in Bassburg and another one in Yarramore. Fine by me. Titus nodded and then looked at Waylon and Colton. How about you two? Colton glanced at Freya. Freya will come up with the date after she's completed her university entrance examination. I'll respect her decision. Titus was astounded. A university program entrance examination? Is she still a student? Freya replied, no, I'm applying for a postgraduate program. Titus lifted his gaze and stared at Waylon. Before Waylon could speak up, Cameron had already responded to the question. We're not in a hurry for the time being. Titus narrowed his eyes. You've obtained your marriage certificate, and you're telling me that you're not in a hurry? Does this girl want to marry Wayne for real? Maisie said, Grandpa, Cam and Wayne are still in the run-in period. Let's leave the date of the wedding banquet to the children to decide. In the end, Titus did not say anything as if he could not be bothered enough to care. As for the couple, Waylon did not speak while Cameron lowered her head and ate. The atmosphere between the two felt inexplicably awkward.